Yo, what's good, y'all? This is Ray, and I'm doing another video with Appreciate the Records. And today, I will be tackling the Drake albums. And I decided I wanted to do just one big video rather than like three individual ones, just because I feel like it would be better. I feel like you know I could just kind of get all my thoughts out in one video, and it would just be like an interesting conversation. So before we go into the albums, I'll just start about like how, I've experienced just like the Drake effect, I guess. I'm a Gen Zer, so I've grown up with Drake. This literally like since he was probably like my age. So Best I Ever Had, Over, you know, like Marvin's Room, Headlines, like all that. Like I was there for all that. Like, you know what I mean? So it was definitely like kind of, I just felt like it was so weird kind of how normal it felt, like, oh, this is Drake, whatever. I feel like it definitely changed when Views dropped, because like Hotline Bling kind of did his own like thing, and I feel like that's when Drake kind of became like Drake for real. So yeah, like it was really interesting. And obviously, if you don't know, like I mentioned before, I'm from Philly, right? So Meek Mill and Drake was like such a huge thing, at least at the time for me, mainly because like I grew up listening to both of them. If you haven't watched my intro video, I talked about how like when I was growing up, like literally Amen with Meek Mill and Drake, like that's like a hard like memory, like that's like a hardcore memory that's in my head, like of my mom driving me from school and she has the radio on and that song is playing. So like to go from that to like seeing them start beefing, it was really weird. And I think just the way that Drake did Meek Mill, like as a Philadelphian, bro, I was sick, man. And there's a lot of parallels that I see with this beef in Drake and Kendrick, but like, yeah, man, it definitely made me, I think, disdain Drake at the time, because, and I feel like this happened. It happened to Drake recently. Like, I guess like the constant attack wouldn't stop. You know what I mean? And that as a fan of both was annoying. So it feels now that like Drake kind of got karma for it. And there's definitely he definitely arguably he kind of deserves it a little bit. I'm not even gonna lie. I feel like there's definitely more hate going towards these projects rather than an actual conversation of growth. So that's why I wanted to do an album review actually on this project, because I think there's a lot of interesting takeaways. I think kind of going into this project, a lot of people know Drake basically got ostracized by the world. Kendrick Lamar had a Super Bowl performance, called him a pedophile on the Super Bowl like halftime show, which was crazy. The Grammys consistently, I guess like emphasized or amplified the noise just by like allowing Kendrick to participate in the Grammy Awards, and not saying like that's a bad thing, because literally Drake did the same thing. Now Drake, at least up until this point, like Drake was kind of like the subject of a lot of memes and jokes and stuff like that. A lot of his peers came out kind of like against him. There's obviously now like there's still people that are for Drake, but yeah, just to see kind of like the big divide in rap kind of shift just because of these two big megastars was definitely it was different. So with that being said, let's go into Iceman, the first album out of 3. Obviously, if you don't know, I talk about my likes, dislikes, my favorite songs, and then kind of like my conclusion and my final score about it. So I'll talk a little bit about what I like about Iceman. Firstly, I really like how Drake came with a plan to prove that he's the best in the game by tackling 3 different genres. This one being a rap album. probably gonna say that with every album, but I think a lot of the issues with Drake albums is that they felt so stuffed, and this was like kind of like the first period where it felt like it was fleshed out and kind of like diversified to where like you had different sounds to choose from, not just like a amalgamation of all of them. You know what I mean? Like I feel like Drake probably would have made like an amalgamation of all of this and put it as like Iceman if this was like Drake from 5 years ago. So I really like that. I like how Drake mixes like his romantic life with his personal life post beef. I feel like introspective Drake is always a better Drake in my opinion. So to have that at this high of a level, I think it's really important, especially coming from a Drake type artist. And you see now, because like I'm making this video a day after the Roots picnic, the whole Jay-Z situation. You can see that it's like obviously it's hurt. I think Drake has a consistent thematic type of vibe throughout this album, which I do appreciate. Like there are Drake albums that have that vibe, but I think, and it might just be like the weight of what Iceman meant for like this kind of like moment of time, you could say. Like Drake didn't really have that same type of thematic energy that I feel like he had on this one. And I also like how Drake featured a small amount of artists to add to this idea that he doesn't really need the game to feel like he's on top, because there's a lot of conversations about Drake, and some of them are definitely, I'm not gonna say they're coming out of nowhere, but like they'll say like Drake is stealing people's flows, or like Drake just uses artists to just have a moment, you know what I'm saying? So I feel like this was kind of like in another conversation that they say is like Drake isn't smart enough to think more than just like at face value. I think with this album specifically, he really showed that he had layers to how he could think, and just like the feature list alone is a perfect example of that. And I'll go into it like further as we talk about some of the songs that I like. And I also felt like on this album he really wanted to prove something. He got more real on it, and like literally throughout, like from song one, you feel it, and that's what I really enjoy, because it really, like Drake really tries to put you in his head at that moment, and I really like that. And also like that Drake he reminds everyone that he still has like the same energy for everybody, especially Kendrick. Like I think that's definitely important. Like, you know what I mean? Like I think this is gonna be the stuff that we talk about years from now. I don't know if this will result in another rap beef. I kind of hope not, because it's kind of pointless. But like, yeah, it'll be like, you know what I'm saying? I don't mind them trading shots back and forth. Like it is what it is. So what I like, that's everything that I liked. Excuse me. Everything that I dislike, I'll say like I really since I've listened to Drake for such a long time, there's kind of like a sound that I associate with Drake, and I really do not like the Yeet Benny X sound that Drake has kind of adopted into his artistry now. Because it, like, yes, there's a thematic vibe to it, but sometimes it just feels like, you know what I mean? It just feels like very like corporate, I guess. Like it feels very music industry corporate. And I don't dislike these artists, but like it's just like that's their sound. You know what I'm saying? I want to listen to Drake to hear Drake, not to hear Yeet-esque sounds. You know what I'm saying? I think there's sometimes Drake, he's definitely draking on this, and I'll put a little definition of what I think draking means. And he does this on this album, but he thankfully doesn't do this on this album as much as he did in his previous albums, because I feel like there's times where I'm just like, bro, like please, bro, like it sounds like you're having a midlife crisis, like please, bro. So thankfully he doesn't do this as much on this album, but there's still moments where he does. I love how Drake was introspective. but I also think there's times that he has that same Drake introspective flow. If you listen to Drake a lot and you're like non-biased, you know what I'm talking about. I feel like obviously like I like all the introspective songs, but there are times where I feel like I don't play them as much because they kind of sound similar to each other. Um, I would say there's also obviously some bad bars in there, and it makes Drake look tone deaf. The Aiden Ross bar is definitely a good example of that. You know, I think there's a lot of filler because a lot of these songs kind of remind me of like Turks and Caicos music. That's kind of like, in a way, it's like Draking adjacent. You know what I'm saying? Like how I said he was Draking. Like I feel like Turks and Caicos music is like almost adjacent to that. And it kind of gets repetitive. And I would have preferred Drake kind of made an album shorter, just to like, because I felt like, you know, those types of vibes, they kind of ruined it for me. But there was definitely a big vision that was put together for this project. Now that my dislikes are over, I'm gonna talk about my favorites. Usually I do an honorable mention, but like since I'm doing 3 different Drake albums, I'm just gonna, you know, just give 3 that I really like off of each album. So with number 3, it's a popular song, obviously because it's Drake. Ran to Atlanta featuring Future and Molly Santana. So before we start, you definitely gotta love the reunion between Drake and Future. You know, they made legendary hits, legendary mixtape. You know, a lot of moments, like, and they've done a lot of good in hip hop. But Drake, out of all the rappers that you gonna forgive, bro, forgiving Future is literally insane. It's definitely insane. It's 100% insane. And I say that because it's like Future not only has 1 album of dudes dissing you, but he got 2 albums of dudes dissing you. In the second album, he doubled down, like by choosing the dudes specifically that was like, yo, let me get on a remix. Like the A$AP Rocky song on We Still Don't Trust You. You know what I'm saying? Even the title alone, I think, was low-key a shot at Drake, We Don't Trust You. So that, I'm like, yo, that's kind of crazy because Future really unleashed a whole cesspool of like negativity amongst rap, like for years to come, honestly, unfortunately. So that's why I'm like, I like the reunion, but it looks kind of crazy. It looks really crazy. I think in this song again, like Drake, like how I said he shows he has multi-layered tendencies. I think this song is a perfect example of that, and I'm not even talking about the song yet, just the title alone. Ran to Atlanta. We all know that's a shot at Kendrick Lamar because he said he ran to Atlanta and Not Like Us. But I think also another thing that people aren't really talking about is his feature with Molly Santana. And I think that's really important because Molly Santana is a California artist, and Kendrick Lamar kept telling Drake, like, you can't, like, you know, you're not as influential in Cali as you think, yada yada yada. And Drake is kind of using his platform to not only boost Atlanta and show that he's still has love in Atlanta, but he also still has love in California. So I think that was really interesting and really smart, especially to have like a younger artist like Molly Santana. Shout out to Molly Santana. I wouldn't expect that to even happen, but it happened. You know what I mean? I love Future's flow on this track, on both of the beats. Even at 40, he still proves that like he's one of the best. Him and Drake going back and forth on the song, especially after years of music, and also seeing the beef that kind of transpired, it's heartwarming, but it's still kind of like, you know, we still got some issues going on, but it's heartwarming to say the least. And also shout out to Molly Santana for killing her verse. I shouted her out earlier, but like she literally like genuinely had her own moment on a song with Future and Drake. That's not easy to do, especially as an artist who, well, I mean, now she's not underground anymore, but like that's not easy to do, to have your own moment on a song with 2 mega stars like that. So really happy for Molly Santana, and I'm really excited to see how she like kind of like progresses like throughout the years because of this. And I also argue now that like Future's kind of finding a new flow, so I'm like kind of interested to see like what's coming from him. So at 2, I have this song that, man, this song I feel like I debate in my head because I'm like, dang, I like this song, but he dissed so many people I rock with, bruh. Whisper My Name. And this song is basically a large track where Drake genuinely gets like a large vent against the industry, and then he brags about like kind of like, you know, the rapper lifestyle, celebrity status, all that. I really like the part where like he just sings like "You Gotta Whisper My Name" like the sample, because I think it's just a lot better than the deep voice flow as the hook. That's just me because I think it just hits different. Because if you're looking at it from Drake's perspective, yeah, like people are talking about you crazy, but it feels like you're whispering my name because I'm Drake. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, like Drake's flow was really good on this song. You know, he smoothly dissed like 2 of the artists that I listen to a lot, Playboi Carti and J. Cole. You know, or wait, did I don't know. I gotta read. I'm pretty sure he dissed Cole and Whisper My Name. But if not, my fault. But I definitely remember he dissed Cardi, and I was like, dang, bro, because he did it in a fly way, bro. And this is the thing that I think this is a problem with like hip hop now that beef did is like it and you can kind of like compare this with like the NBA, all that. Like people don't appreciate what's going on in the moment until it's like years that are passed by and stuff like that. Like, am I mad that he dissed one of my favorite artists? Yeah, but like I'm gonna appreciate this moment because it's like, yo, like at least Drake sounds like he cares. You know what I'm saying? It's been a minute since he sounded like that. You know what I'm saying? So I'm glad to at least see like, or I'm glad to be like I can at least appreciate that. Like this is Drake at 40 right now. You know what I'm saying? He's not the best artist in the game anymore, I feel like, but like he's not one of the worst. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, man. I really think this song really showcased why Drake is still an elite rapper. And then I also think the producing is very chilling. You know, and I think that's really the intent, like to really show like the ruthlessness and like the kind of like the coldness, no pun, of like what kind of like what the Iceman, I guess, means. And then the last song, my favorite song off the album, Make Them Cry, bro. Yo, when I first played, because it's the intro, bro. This intro is crazy, man. Like, I think Drake came in this song just going crazy. And when I said earlier, like, he puts you in the mind state of what Drake is going through. Like, he really does that at an amazing level, I think, as an intro. He addresses everything that's been going on post-beef. I think he gets way more honest than he did on his album with P&D. Like, it felt like he was kind of like trying to brush it off, but this album he really got into how it affected him, how it affected his life, like how he moves forward with all of this, you know what I'm saying, and how sometimes, like, even when he tries to be introspective, it just doesn't work. So that was really fire. It was a really good intro to have. You know, again, another example of Drake showing that he's very layered. So I really appreciate the song a lot. Make Them Cry is definitely, like, I wouldn't say it's a tearjerker, but like it's one of the songs where it really makes you think, like, whoa, like Drake revealed that his family was going through like health issues and stuff like that, and I don't think it happened recently, but I'm assuming like it was going on during like the 2024 to now type moment. So I'm just like, wow, like to see him be open and vulnerable about that, like that's artistry right there, and you gotta appreciate that. So that's why Make Them Cry is my favorite on Iceman. As a conclusion, I'm giving this album a final score of 7. I think this is some of Drake's best rap performances this decade. You know, obviously I think Her Loss is definitely up there as well, but you gotta appreciate some of the great moments that Drake had on this project. You could tell he was very intentional with how he wanted his words to sound, how he wanted his album to sound. The I guess like even I guess like the depths of this album, you could tell that there was a subtle intention put within the themes. So I don't think this is the best Drake body of work, but I'll say at Drake is like 40, you know what I'm saying? Like at 40 years old, I feel like this is a really solid album from Drake, especially given like when you compare like 2020 onward Drake, like I feel like Iceman would probably be one of the stronger albums that come out of like this era. So yeah, man, I'm definitely really hyped that like this is good music, man, and it makes Drake feel like uh um you know, he's trying to show people that he's one of the best and he's gonna be here forever. That's why the cover art is him with the Michael Jackson glove. So, you know, no, it's not like a 40-year-old making serious songs and terse music, but like I think he just really displayed a really good sense of storytelling through his conflict with Kendrick. And you know, he was just being a raw version of himself, which is something that you haven't seen for a long time. So yeah, man, shout out Iceman. Now we're going to move on to the second album, Habibti. Yeah, man. So this album is the R&B Drake album only, and I really like that he did that because Drake is known to have albums where it's rap and R&B, and I know he's gone on record to say like he personally wants that to show the diversity, but I also like how he just purposely finally sat down and was like, you know what, I'm gonna just make an R&B album because it kind of shows that like again like his diverse like his range, I guess, as an artist, but also like it just shows that he can kind of focus on things if he really wants to focus on them, you know what I mean? So what I like, I like that this is a mellow vibe and that the album just bangs. Like it really bangs as an R&B album. Like it has that like if you listen to R&B, there's a certain like I don't want to sound like a nerd, but like BPM, but there's like a certain like rhythm that R&B has, and I feel like Drake really executed that well on this album. You know, the whole album, like the chords were very like the chord progressions on this album were amazing, man. Like that also gave it that huge R&B vibe, you know. Like Slap the City, like Fort Worth, classic. Like I really liked also how this album was sequenced. I just felt like Drake knew how he could go into different bags of I guess his sound with R&B, and it worked. He executed it perfectly, and I also enjoy how this production kind of has a little bit of mystique to it, and even like the cover, you know, it's like a lady, and you can only see her eyes, but like there's tape kind of like put on, and like maybe it's painted over. I don't necessarily know what it is, but it makes it look like it's a mysterious vibe too. Even Habibti, I looked it up. It means like my love or something like that. So it's really interesting. Like it definitely has that like vibe to it, and I really like that. And I think this also might be one of Drake's most like purposeful albums. I know I talked about Iceman, but just in terms of like the soul of Drake, I guess. Like that's why it feels more purposeful than most albums. You know, obviously I talked about the likes. I'm gonna be fair and talk about the dislikes. I think there was too many beat switches at times because I think Drake sounds his best when he just sticks to one thing. That might be a constant thing that I talk about a lot this video. Like for example, I thought the intro was cool, you know, but the WNBA song, it's okay, but there's like beat switches and stuff, so I'm like, you kind of lose me. Classic, I like Classic because Drake sounds like old Drake, and then like he has like a minute and a half long interlude when it felt like he could have had a second verse. You know what I mean? So yeah, like I'm not gonna say that Drake can't do that because it's Drake, but like that was just one thing that kind of bothered me. Um, I think there's times that Drake sounds like he's draking, and it's not relatable. But I think it was White Bone. That was a song I didn't really like because he was talking about like bridesmaids and like wedding plans. I don't know anything about that because I'm 24, so like you kind of losing me. You know what I'm saying? Like I can't relate to that. You know, there's also times where I feel like on this album where like he sounds like he's old, but there's also times where he sounds like he's trying to be super young, and I'm like, bro, like just embrace being old. You know what I'm saying? Because people do like White Bone. You know what I'm saying? People do like White Bone. I just don't. That's just not for me. But I'm also like, not to sound like a hater, but like I also don't want Drake to sound like he's my age, because I'm like, bro, like you're I've listened to you since I was 8, bro. Like no, you know what I'm saying? We're a little bit different, unfortunately. And then I also think sometimes like again, like with the Draking effect, like it sounds like he was yapping on this album a little bit. So yeah, that was kind of like a couple of my dislikes. My favorites, I mentioned it earlier. At number 3, I have Classic. This is self-explanatory because Drake kind of hops in his old bag, and sings on this like old school R&B beat. Kind of still has that like R&B vibe that I was talking about that was very consistent throughout this album. I love the progressions on each song, on this song, excuse me. And I also love how Drake kind of made like an old school vibe, because it was just like, yo, like you really could just vibe to this joint. Like it's really not bad, The only thing I talked about it earlier, but like the only thing I didn't like was the outro, and I feel like he was trying to pay homage, I guess, but it just fell flat for me. Because Classic was kind of like such a good, like the song was like really good, so the outro kind of like I had a high standard for it. So at number 2, I have Slap the City, featuring Quindressa. I hope I'm saying that right. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I apologize. I think Drake raps a great verse of like just wanting to get this one girl, and it just like it just oozes like player vibes. You know what I'm saying? Like it just oozes player, and it still has that mysterious vibe, man. Like the chords in the track make it feel super like, I don't know, like just feels like very like I think of like just like a misty, cloudy night, like when I listen to a song like this. You know what I'm saying? It just really feels like a deep R&B cut, even though Drake is kind of rapping throughout the song. I didn't really like the beat switch like that. It was cool, like, but like that first beat, oh my god, bro, that joint was tough, man. But I will say, even though I didn't like the second beat as much, like it was arguably probably his most sequenced beat switch in this album. So I'll give him that. Like it could have been worse. You know what I'm saying? And so, with that being said, at number 1, I have Fort Worth featuring Party Next Door, man. This song tells a story of Drake kind of dealing through a tough relationship while he's on the come up. I really resonated with how he talks about like trying to cope with his pain. Like he really paints the picture of a younger Drake struggling, who's literally like, trying to make it and using psychedelic drugs to help cope with what's going on. And I think also he just set up a vibe that really just talked about the relationship as like he made it feel very painful that it ended, and P&D also just added so much to the song with his verse, because he knows he's kind of being self-destructive, and he's harming himself and the person that he yearns for. But like I think that's like kind of like oddly enough like the beauty in it, because he's very self-aware of what's going on. So I mean, I think that kind of invokes like an emotional reaction out of you as a listener, and it really makes you kind of relate to just trying to feel like you could like I get like be happy again. I guess I'm not gonna say like that's like the full feeling, but it makes you feel like dang, like you really felt like, and you could really relate to what these dudes were going through. Like I know I did. So I think that's why this is one of my favorite songs, actually out of like all of the three, and it might go down as like one of my favorite songs this year. So we'll see. This is a really good song, man. This is a really good song. So yeah, shout out to Drake and Party Next Door. It does make me think like, dang, like I wish we had more of this on their collab album because it didn't really feel like that. So it is what it is. So conclusion, like as a final score, I'm probably gonna give this a 6.5. Drake successfully makes a solid R&B album that displays the romance, loneliness, and maturity that we've missed from him, while also delivering great vocals. And I think the production choices really impacted the listening experience, and you know, for better or for worse at times. So, you know, you can let me know what you think about Habibti. But with that being said, we're on the final album, Maid of Honor. So this album is like a club album, and honestly, like I really didn't mind it because of like what happened with Nokia, all that. So it really shows again Drake trying to diversify his work, kind of making like a Honestly Nevermind sequel, which is like interesting. But with that being said, like I really liked how this project is very sequenced. Since it's a club album, like you have a lot of beat switches. It's weird because there's times where it feels like a lot, but there's times where it feels like it's a vibe, and I think that's the purpose of the album, is to make it be a vibe. You know, and like also like a lot of the beats sound very unique. Like Outside Tweaking is like really like weird. Like it's weird. Like the whole song from start to finish doesn't sound like the same song. It's like it. I think it's weird, but it's tough at the same time. You know, I feel like when I said like Drake makes Turks and Caicos music, like this is kind of like a good example of that. I think he fully dives into the Turks and Caicos bag on this one, and I think it's meant for that, and I think that's why it's like better, because at least like he knows like I'm going for the Turks and Caicos vibe. You feel me? And then yeah, man, yeah. I guess like some dislikes, because I didn't really dislike this album as much. It's just like a vibe. You know what I'm saying? Sounding old, like Drake sounding old again, like he's draking. You know, it's kind of funny because this is the album that like you probably could do like the most and be like old but young, but like sometimes I guess for me as a listener it does kind of sour the experience. And then also like sometimes I think this album tries to be too much of a club hit rather than being a vibe, and I think Cheetah Print is a perfect example of that. I didn't like that song at all. But yeah, like those are really like the only things I didn't like about the album. You know, faves 3, I think I'm gonna go Outside Tweaking. Just because again, like it there's 2 different completely weird vibes, but I like it. I kind of like how Drake has like different flows on this song, because it doesn't sound like it's Drake. Like I guess it's weird. Like it's a weird song. You know what I mean? And he got Stunna Sandy on it, and like she kind of slid. Like I'm not gonna lie, she kind of did her thing. So you know, like I think like the second part of the song kind of reminds me of like Bikini Bottom, like on some weird vibes, but like that's why I like it. Like I feel like they really succeeded on making a consistent like just feeling of like just being in the club, just vibing, and you're gonna see like that's like a consistent theme throughout all these songs. But like that's again like that's like the purpose of the album. So I think at 2 I might get Amazing Shape with Popcorn. Yeah, man, I like this is just like dance hall Afrobeat type vibe. Like this is a vibe that I feel like I'm gonna hear outside this summer. Like I'm so serious. And I think Drake and Popcorn really like played well into that. this isn't their first collaboration either. Like they're known for making like these cool little vibes. So having this on this album, I think was really good. It really slows down the mood, really slows down the vibe, but it really has like kind of like I guess like a real like close feeling to it. So like, I feel like this is gonna be a banger for sure. And I think the last song, like, bro, because I like New Bestie, but I think the beat switch kind of like lowers its value. So I think my favorite song on this is Q&A, because it's just such a vibe. Like it feels a little bit like an East Coast vibe. I'm not even gonna lie. So like that's why I kind of like it. The bars I feel like are really funny and cool. But it's also talking about like relationships and stuff like that, and like like yeah, like it's just a cool vibe. Like it gives a similar vibe to Amazing Shape, but it's just different because it's like a little like you could like sway more and stuff like that. I don't know. That's where I can say it. But yeah, those are some of my favorite songs off of Maid of Honor. Final score, I'm kind of gonna give it also a 6.5, and it's not because it's not a bad album. It's just because it's a vibe. Like I'm not putting the album on to like take something away from it, but I'll put it on if I'm just trying to vibe out or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, not to make it sound like it's like, not to knock Drake for it, but there's no substance in this album specifically out of the three. So that's kind of like why I'm like, I still think I like it a lot, but there's a lot of just because of how it's structured, I'm not gonna go into it unless I'm in a specific mood. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, overall, I think as someone who's trying to like listen to this as a non-biased listener, I think people are giving Drake like a little bit too much hate because of like what happened in 2024 onwards. And believe me, like Drake isn't my favorite artist, but I do genuinely believe that he delivered solid albums, and I'd argue that like again, Iceman featured Drake some of Drake's best moments this decade. Like I feel like to me, there's no way some people listen to some of these songs and were like, there's only 2 good songs on this. Like come on, bro. Like I feel like that's just you're selling yourself short. So I mean, even though I rated them at these like 6 and 7 ratings, I do appreciate that Drake made different albums for different moods. And it worked well in comparison to Drake always having an amalgamation of things, because sometimes it sounds like he's here and then he's on a completely different sound the next song, and it's just a mess. So with this rollout specifically, the fact that he had separate albums, I think that really benefited him, especially as like an older artist. Like I think this is something that you want to hang your hat on for sure, like for years to come. So again, like I love how this album stuck to its theme. I feel like we're not gonna see something like this in a long time from Drake, but who knows? I could be wrong, but yeah, like just let me know what you think about this. Let me know what you think about all the albums. What you like, dislike. What's your favorite albums? You know what I'm saying? What are your favorite songs? Yeah, man. Yeah. Appreciate y'all, bro.